why don't we get started? It's just a few minutes after 8. So Sarah, Gabrielle, Jen, and Jessica, thank you guys very much for joining this evening. I think we're going to have some fun this evening. Thank you guys.
We will have some fun, absolutely.
All right, cool.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. So listen, for everybody else who's on the line, thank you guys very much for joining the webinar this evening. For anybody who doesn't know who I am, my name is Gary Hibbert. I am an investor. I'm a realtor. And also part of my team is Christopher Hummel. Don't call him Chris, Christopher, okay? Also got Quentin Kordick. He's also an investor and a real estate agent as well too. And one of the things that we do, we specialize in the Durham region. We focus heavily on the BRRRR strategy. And over the last few years, we've moved into the Peterborough market. And we specifically did that back in 2017, just because things had changed in the Durham market significantly. And out there as well, too, we focus on the BRRRR strategy. And believe it or not, we also have investors that are buying single family homes out there. So yes, single family homes can work. All right. We are a one-stop shop. If anybody doesn't know who we are, Daniel Patton, who is a mortgage agent, he also works for Butler Mortgages. They are a phenomenal mortgage company. We've got contractors, we've got property management, whatever you need, we have it. We've got the contacts and we got the resources, okay? So for this evening's call, we have our 4 fearless millennials who have faced head-on entrepreneurial challenges that real estate investing in Canada offers, but more specifically, the pandemic of COVID-19 that has been kind of thrown into the mix. So tonight, we're going to go through I'm going to throw some tough questions out for these fearless young ladies and some of the challenges maybe that they're going through and how they're kind of dealing with it. So before we kind of jump right into it, let me kind of maybe just do like a quick introduction to everybody so that you guys all know who these young ladies are. So Gabrielle Campbell, owner of Wriggleway Homes. She started investing her journey, purchasing new builds and sustainable footprint in the Milton area, followed by her first completed rental. Today, I believe it's you and your husband that have this, right? It's a portfolio that consists of over 10 doors with a shifted focus to acquire multifamilies in both Canada and the US. And it's your husband, you and your husband that do this together, correct?
Yes,
okay,
correct.
Beautiful. So that's Gabrielle. Next up is Jen Richter. Next up, we've got Jen Richter of Double E Properties. And she's grown her portfolio to 11 properties with her husband while still raising 2 young girls during COVID-19. That's not easy, okay? This investment journey started with new build homes in Milton, out in Guelph. However, after recognizing changes in the market, an additional strategy was added, creating a legal secondary suite on the Hamilton Mountain. So please welcome Jen.
Hey guys.
Up next, we have Jessica and Jessica. Don't hurt me for this. Bushta, I got that right?
Bushta, you were close.
So close. That's so close. All right. So she's completed $50 million in real estate deals by the age of 30 while working full time as a lawyer in the energy sector. She's also known as the Airbnb queen. Jess specializes in luxury cottages, rentals, and high-end long-term rental properties right across Canada, and now focuses on purchasing off-market multifamily properties. And Jessica, me and Chris were talking about this earlier, I really want to kind of get into the Airbnb and kind of where things are there. So I think it'll be interesting to kind of get into that. And last but not least, my good friend, Sarah Larbi, I've built a good relationship with her over the last year. She has built and grown a 7-figure 10-property investment portfolio by the early age of 30 while being full-time employed. That's an incredible feat. Known as a BRRRR expert, her results-oriented approach has been featured in numerous Canadian media, on the stage at events like Canadian Real Estate Wealth Investor Forum, and as a guest on many North American finance-focused podcasts. Also has her own podcast, which I've been on a couple times, Where Should I Invest? So Jessica, thank you for being here as well too.
Thanks.
All right. So first question that I want to throw at you guys, and I'll let anybody kind of jump into this one, but Jessica, I'm going to kind of put you maybe on the spotlight first. because me and Chris, again, we were talking about this earlier today, and we want to kind of know, where do you see things going with Airbnb? Just because of the fact, obviously, that the government now has imposed, I think it's like $100,000 fine for individuals and $10 million fine for businesses. Where do you see things going?
Yeah, so COVID has kind of turned Airbnb into an interesting model right now. So we're in what like the province of Ontario is called this emergency period. So essentially any bookings that are made after April 4th, when this was put in place, have to be, any kind of short-term rentals have to be to individuals who are in need of housing during the emergency period. Now, the government hasn't gone out and specifically defined what that means. So that is, there's a little bit that's open to interpretation, but essentially, if you're not in need of housing, the government's saying stay home, don't go out just for fun.
Right.
So early on, so with my, I run cottage Airbnbs. So they're not in, major metropolitan areas. They're out in the countryside. They're near water. And really early on, we saw a bit of a dip in bookings where, people were really staying home and doing the best they could to not go out anywhere. At the same time, I'm actually a lot busier with bookings now than I was, let's say, a couple of weeks ago, because as things are ramping up, as people are kind of, staying with their own families, but needing to get out of the house for whatever reason, people that live in apartment buildings where perhaps there's an outbreak, there's, people that are on the front lines that have to self-isolate from their families. There's so many people in these circumstances that aren't conventional that are in need of housing during the emergency period. And so we've specifically made our cottages available to those types of individuals. So we're actually seeing a big increase. I'm almost booked up for the rest of the month on my Airbnbs. So it's been a little bit of a shift in how I market the property and
Right.
whom I offer the property to.
Okay, that's interesting. Sarah, I'll kind of throw this maybe question over to you. Now, in regards to kind of where things are in the market, do you see a hit in the real estate prices, and maybe specifically where it is today and where you see things maybe down in the fall?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we probably had this conversation on our podcast as well.
Yeah.
And, I will say I don't know with 100% certainty, but, I have my predictions and I have my thoughts, and my whole piece of this is, and where I think everything is going to go, it's going to be very dependent on the unemployment rate. Like right now we're at 13%. Once things start to reopen again, if, people are going back to work, are businesses going to need the same amount of employees? That question number one, probably not.
Right.
That's kind of likely. And then how many people are actually going to go back to a job? So the unemployment rate, I think, is going to dictate a lot. Whether or not we're going to have another outbreak is going to dictate a lot. So let's just say you fast forward 4 months from now, people that are unemployed and unserved for 4 months, what happens when all of a sudden they don't have jobs to go back to, or don't have the same type of income or the same hours as they used to? And then all of a sudden their mortgages come due again in that 6 month that they've deferred it. And last time you had a really interesting conversation, you had Scotia on, and you were doing a lunch and learn, and Scotia was saying like 17% of their mortgages are deferred right now. So what happens between 4 to 6 months, I think, is going to be quite interesting. So personally, for me, I'm getting liquid with, one property I'm going to sell, and I'm just going to make sure that I have the ability to buy a few. I personally think come fall to about January, February, we're going to see some opportunities. Now, I think, is it going to be a 20% dip? Is it going to be a 10% dip? Is it just going to be people that are going to be more motivated? I don't know. I think some of the more luxurious markets may dip a little bit more, but I don't think we're going to see a 50% drop because there's still a housing shortage issue in Southern Ontario. Maybe if it's up in Timmins, it might be a different story. But, with the low vacancy for rent, I don't see anything necessarily happening for rent. If anything, the rent market will be higher because less people are going to be able to afford to buy, or people may liquidate to rent. So I think there's going to be some opportunity there. Hence why I don't like to have tenants that are going to be lifers, but I think there's going to be some opportunity starting in the fall. So if you're not, liquid now and you don't have the ability to buy in the fall, I think that's something that you might want to consider getting ready for that time frame.
Right. And so when you say that you're getting liquid, are you kind of taking a look at your portfolio and looking at maybe the ones that aren't performing as well, and then kind of maybe moving into something that's better?
So all of my rentals that are cash flowing, that are long term, I'm not touching.
Okay.
The only one I was doing, I'm finishing a BRRRR that I was going to essentially move into an Airbnb, the basement, and then Airbnb, the Oakville place. I think I'm going to try to list that. If I get the price that I want, I think now is a good time to list. There's a very little supply out there, and we're not competing with so many listings. So I'm taking a property I bought for $690. I'm going to try to sell it for $970 and see what happens.
Nice. Okay. And so anybody that's on the line as well too, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to continue to ask a few more questions, then I'm going to open it up so that if anybody on the call has some questions for these ladies, you can fire away. And this is unscripted, right? So I'm just kind of coming up with questions as I go along here. Now, this is a question that I want to answer or get answered. And Jen, maybe I'll kind of flip this one over to you. It's a tough one. And you hear a lot of people talking about the recovery. Is it going to be a V recovery? Is it going to be a U recovery? I've heard people say it could be an L recovery. I hope it's not an L. That's a pretty
that would be horrible.
It would be. But I mean, where do you see things going? Are we going into a recession, or is this going to be longer? Is it a depression?
My answer is a little different because I have a bio background. So
Okay.
I actually have a master's in conservation and wildlife education. So I kind of see this a little differently sometimes. I like to apply my primatology degree or my science degree to real estate a lot of the times. So when I'm looking at the pandemic, I don't think, my personal opinion, we are going to be done anytime soon. Usually with these big pandemics, there's 2-3 waves typically. I think we're in our first wave, and I'm anticipating we'll probably have a second wave of illness, sickness, things like that. So what I'm seeing is like you get that big arch, things start coming down a little bit, and then history, all pandemics, all diseases, they start to go up again. I'm trying to prep ourselves for that up again. I think I'm kind of like along the same lines of Sarah. Do I think anything, you're going to be able to get amazing deals right now? I think a lot of people are kind of holding strong to what they want for their house prices back a couple months ago. They're determined that's what they're going to get. I don't think once CERB ends, once the mortgage deferrals ends, once we potentially see this second wave come back, I think the market is probably going to stay stagnant at least till December. I think we've missed the spring market, guaranteed for sure. We've been talking to some agents. They're not even sure we're going to even get a fall market. So when we're kind of running numbers, looking at different projects, we're trying to, whatever the ARV is now today, that's what we're predicting kind of for the rest of the year. But like we said, it's kind of hard to guess. All I can do is we're making sure all our businesses are pandemic proof. So we're trying to make sure whether it's the properties we're buying are going to be pandemic proof, whether the tenants we put in are going to be pandemic proof. Just because, like I said, there's going to be a second wave. And even if you look at the history of pandemics, they used to be 30, 25 years apart. And over the years now, they're 12 years apart, 10 years apart, 5 years apart. They're becoming so close that you're seeing them every 3 to 5 years, whether it's MERS, SARS, Ebola. I worked at the Credit Valley Hospital, so I've worked through all of these pandemics on the front line, and they're coming sooner and sooner and sooner. So to think we're never going to see a pandemic again in real estate, I think is a little naive. So I think it's a great time to kind of see what works right now, what doesn't work right now, and what am I going to change, because we're going to be seeing these.
Right. It'll be interesting to see though, Jen, just to kind of add to that. I wonder, like, I know you're saying that we may not even have a fall market, but I wonder if that spring market may shift or move into the summer. just because I wonder if people are going to be leaving the country if they can, and so they may continue to maybe purchase throughout the summer. It'll be interesting to kind of see. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, whether it's investors or just, we'll say, the average person selling their home, I think a lot of people are doing the whole wait and see attitude, whether it's private money, selling homes, investment properties. I think a lot of people are kind of sitting on the sidelines, just kind of waiting to see how everything plays out. Nobody wants to make a big move. I think that's great for opportunity for people like us that want to take action right away, that we can take advantage of a lot of properties that have been kind of sitting on the market for a long time, or reaching out to like multiplex landlords who are finding it difficult to collect rent. Everybody talked about April 1st, May 1st. Everybody's now got June 1st coming down. This is a good time to kind of reach out to those landlords that are sometimes just too tired to deal with the extra stress right now. I think it's because we've never seen something like COVID, I think it's very hard to guess what the future is. SARS did not affect the real estate market. And to say that COVID's going to be the same, you can't. We were treating SARS and COVID completely different. We're treating Ebola and COVID completely different. I don't know if there will be a spring market, just because like CERB's going to be taken away potentially. We get it for 4 months and then it's done. Everybody who's deferring mortgages, or we're going to have a huge snowball payment at the end. So
yeah,
I honestly, I don't know. I mean, it's a great real estate agent question. I don't think our market's going to be spiking as much, like seeing the spring market spike, just move to the fall. My personal opinion.
Okay, that's good. Cool. Gabrielle, and look, and I'm talking to a lot of investors. We have a couple that are taking action. Some aren't. But do you think now is a good time to invest?
I guess I should take myself off of mute. It all depends on what your current situation is. If you are at that stage where you're ready to invest, sure, go right on ahead. Don't let the current state of affairs dictate your comfort level. If you are capable to do it, I would say go ahead and do it. For us personally, we have made that decision to stop everything right now and reevaluate our current situation and find whatever loopholes that's there right now, restructure everything, and then come up with an alternate plan and then attack the market again. So to answer your question, when is not a good time? There's never ever a good time to invest. So, do it now if you can.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, right, I think, and even just kind of touching on what Jen said earlier, right, is just making sure that's pandemic proof. Making sure that, and I'm sure that falls in line with making sure you're buying in the right area, making sure that the property can cash flow, making sure that there's population increase and all that other fundamental stuff, right? I don't know if anybody else, Jessica or Sarah, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think this is unfortunately where we're going to see a lot of people that were speculating lose their shirts, right? Like the ones that were buying expensive properties and still paying $400, $500, $600. I mean, we've been saying this for a while, right? $400, $500, $600 a month for somebody to live there because they were banking on appreciation. Well, let's just put it this way: the next 2 years might be tough. And by the way, if your tenant all of a sudden doesn't have a job anymore and you're charging them, $2,500 a month rent, well, chances are they're probably going to be one of those tenants that are going to be, unfortunately not able to pay full rent. And right now with the LTV being closed, by the time it reopens, I mean, that could be a tenant in there for 12 plus months. So this is, this goes back to buy on the fundamentals, find the areas that can take the beatings a little bit more. Look for properties that have some cash flow. You're not going to have the same cash flow as the US, but some cash flow where you're not paying out of pocket every single month, that, you've got a good tenant that you've screened that's, not planning on rent striking. So that there's unfortunately a few things that when things are good, people think that they're doing a great job by investing in whatever. And it keeps going up and they're like, yeah, you know what, I'm doing a good job. The times where, it starts shifting and the bad times, this is where the ones that were, very calculated and invested according to the fundamentals are going to do okay. And a lot of people won't, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Right. And look, I did a podcast the other day with Matt, and me and Chris, we talk about this all the time. And I remember back in 2015, 16 and 17, when the market was hot, and you want to jump into those lucrative type of properties because everybody else is doing it. Like, you know, everybody's striking it rich. And Chris, you remember this, we talked about it, where it's like kind of walking by this house, and you see this house party going on, and people are jumping off the roof and into the pool, and it's 2:00 in the morning, and you want to join, but you know the cops are coming. Right. And so it's all about, you know, making sure that you do the fundamentals and do it. And just, it's just that nice, slow game, steady, right down the path to financial freedom. So I agree with that. And so for people that are on the call, if you guys want to kind of maybe start throwing out some questions, feel free to. Chris, Quentin, I don't know if you guys have any questions for Sarah or Jessica or Jen or Gabrielle.
And it's funny, Gary, because I was literally thinking exactly that same thing with the party. You know, except it's not 2 a.m. It's only 10. It's not 2 a.m. It's 10 p.m. Right? You're out in the bushes looking in the window, thinking, "Oh, what a great party!" Right? But you know the cops are coming. You just don't know when. And I guess they showed up, right? So no, you know, it's funny because we're hearing all types of different opinions about what's going to happen with this, what's going to happen with that, and the market and so forth. Can we just bring it real quick right back to the Airbnb? And I know that Airbnb downtown is very different than Airbnb in cottage country, right? But a lot of people were really, like you said, Sarah, paying $400 or $500 a month in order to, you know, effectively house these people in downtown Toronto with these condos. But Airbnb helps switch the game a little bit for these folks, right? Well, these folks were now making actually some serious money. So I think the question now becomes, well, what are your impressions? And maybe not just Sarah, but all you fine ladies, you know, what are your impressions of the downtown Toronto condo market?
Well, I think downtown Toronto actually was hit pre-COVID. So downtown Toronto, I think a lot of landlords that were looking to do Airbnb as their main strategy for renting out that unit had already been hit when the rules were coming into force and eventually came into force, kind of limiting Airbnbs in Toronto in general to your primary residence, right? So that was a big hit. The funny thing is for me is most like condo bylaws in the city of Toronto do not allow short-term rentals. So, I mean, from my point of view, I don't do obviously any Airbnb rentals downtown Toronto in condos, but COVID-19 shouldn't have been a shock to those landlords because there were already protocols in place where they weren't really permitted to do it. So I think it's probably just shutting down a couple of those units that still were kind of getting by and not being rented. But I think it was more of a long time coming, and it was just another hit that hit that space specifically.
So what are we going to see then out in the suburbs? I mean, are we going to see some of that? You know, obviously some of that sell-off I would expect, or some of that dip in what we would consider a dip in price. Do you think we might see some of that, you know, outside of the city proper in the suburbs?
Jess, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to add a few things?
I'll throw my opinion.
I'm happy to answer it.
I want to hear from you.
Yeah, so here's what I'm thinking. Unfortunately, after COVID, there's going to be a lot of divorces. There's going to be a lot of changes in family dynamics. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to need that place in between another longer term solution and or whether it's buying a house or renting. And so I actually think that there's going to be like a little bit of a higher demand for like the midterm type of, you know, Airbnb property. So maybe it's not going to be just a whole, couple days because somebody's coming from New York or from a different, traveling into town. I don't think we're going to get those people, but we're going to get, there's still going to be people that need places to live. There's still going to be people that are going to, need that interim. So again, like right now, that's what I'm thinking. There's going to be some opportunity, whether it's somebody that needs something for 2 weeks, they might want to do some construction of their property, get out of the dust for a few weeks, get back in. There's insurance claims. I mean, it's easier to stay in somebody's house with a kitchen instead of a hotel. So, with that piece, I don't think we're going to get the travelers, but we're going to get, okay, how do I get out of my house? I can't stand my husband or my wife or whatever it is. I think we're going to see some of that. And are we going to see some people decide that they're going to do long-term potentially, and some people might decide to sell?
Mm. It'd be interesting to see as well too, is especially now when you go through like a pandemic that we're going through right now, and you've got a lot of people that are living downtown Toronto, just for obviously the convenience of it, and you got the Raptors down there, and it's just a great ambiance down there. I wonder if now some people will become fearful and may want to move out of that downtown core and kind of now move to a place where they can get a little bit more land, where they can, have a backyard, as opposed to now when you get an elevator and you can only have, I don't even know what the limit is, 2 people in there, or 1 people in there. I know, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that's going to be frustrating for some people where, they're on the 10th floor and now they got to walk down the flight of stairs, right?
I was gonna
talking to me, Gary, because that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm leaving downtown Toronto. I'm moving out into like the suburbs of Ottawa, but that's personal decision.
Yeah, but that's good though, right? Because I think you're probably going to see more people doing that, and I think you may end up even seeing more land values start to go up in the the outskirts of the city.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to add too, from our wholesaling perspectives, we've been talking a lot about the market. Listings have obviously gone down, so sales have gone down too. There's been that kind of decline, but from our wholesaling business, like we're doing like more deals than we did last year even. So like I think so far this year up to date, we've done over 50 deals. So we've bought and assigned over 50 properties, and I think we tied up three new properties today. So what we're maybe not seeing on the MLS, we're kind of seeing in the wholesaling space, is that people still need to get out of tricky situations. If somebody, like Sarah mentioned, facing a divorce, if somebody's behind on mortgage payments, which is like right now becoming a bigger and bigger reality, with people losing their jobs and being on CERB, all kinds of different family dynamics that make it so that somebody can no longer afford their house or cannot maintain their house anymore at that same standard. We're getting a lot of really good deals. And so what we're seeing on the wholesaling front is a lot of our buyers, some of them have pulled back a little. And I think that's in part due to like private financing drying up a little bit. A lot of private lenders are a little hesitant right now to be lending out money just because of the situation. So they've really pulled the funds back. But if you're a flipper or you're a professional landlord, people are still buying deals from us, and they're getting even better deals because some investors maybe have pulled back a little bit. And so the ones that are buying are getting great deals. And if we look at market kind of trends, generally across Ontario, prices have been pretty stagnant. I mean, some areas have been hit a little harder than others. Some areas have increased a little bit. So kind of pocket by pocket. But if we look at, and that's kind of from January till now, let's say, like just before COVID hit and then now, when we look at, May of last year and today's prices, generally we're up in the larger metropolitan areas from last year. So prices haven't taken a hit. And if you're, like I said, a professional flipper, and that's what you do as a full-time, job or employment for yourself, you have to keep flipping. And so it's just, maybe you just need a little, slightly bigger margins, or as a landlord, you have to, make sure that, you're really running your numbers a little tighter. But the great thing about real estate is over the long term, prices do go up. And so if your strategy really well, you can adapt it and you can still make money, during these tough times. And that's what we've been seeing is, we have an increase actually in sales of our wholesale property deals.
Yeah, no, you're right though. You can make money in any market, right? Going up, going down, or even going sideways, right? So I 100% agree with that. All right, so listen, we got a number of questions that are coming in now. Before we kind of jump into the questions, Chris has got a couple things that he would like to talk about, and then we'll continue. You're muted there, Chris.
Yeah. Are you putting it on screen?
Yep. Can you see it?
Yeah. I
right.
cannot. Not yet.
You can't see it. Can anybody else see it?
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah?
there. All right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we can see it.
Yeah, so lunch and learn.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay. All right, beautiful. So then lunch and learn. Lunch and learn with conversation about, we're doing a live webinar with Eric Poblet. And you guys see that, right?
Yep.
Thursday, the 28th of May. All right, beautiful. Now, we're going to be effectively talking, now he's with Equifax. So effectively, he's going to be talking about general education on credit, how to improve it, how it works, changes in the industry between Equifax and lenders. So that's huge. That's important for sure. How the private lending space will be changed forever. And I'm dying to hear that. Will mortgage deferrals impact your credit and how? Right, mortgage deferrals. And we'll be talking about things like what are the new reporting guidelines. So there's a whole lot more packed in. Obviously, we only have an hour. And we could probably, geez, Gary, man, when we're doing these, there are always a lot of information. We got to cut it short after an hour. So that is coming up on Thursday, the 28th, lunch and learn at noon, 12 p.m. All right, what else we got? Fast starts coming up. Yep, Fast starts coming up on the, what date is this? The 9th of June, on Tuesday. All right, 7 p.m. We're going to take you, beginning investors, through all the way through a deal, right? This is important stuff that you need to know as an investor, and this is why you guys are here. So we're going to take you through the deal. We're going to take you through everything you need to know as a beginning budding investor. So that's what Quentin and I. All right. And last but not least, make sure you guys check out Gary's podcast, Real Talk with Gary. You can catch it on Apple, iTunes, and a few other places as well. This one, however, is with good friend Aziz Velji. Now, I know, Gary, you're always big on mindset, so this is mindset, definitely related. So how to tear down and rebuild those mental structures that imprison you. How can you continue? How can you move forward when you think you can't? All right, that's what Gary, you're going to be talking about. All right. And the last slide, I know you added something in. I can't remember what it is. So
just to go to the website there and download the free tenant screening made easy guide. Just go to smarthomechoice.ca.
Tenant screening made easy.
All right, cool. All right. So back to these questions here. So Quentin, you want to maybe fire off a couple of questions that's in that chat?
Yep, for sure. And just so everyone knows, the links for the events and Gary's podcasts are in the chat box there, so you can grab those from there, and we'll throw on the website as well after this. So here's a great question. With borders closed and predictions of new travel, more stringent travel restrictions, how much are you factoring low immigration numbers into your future investment decisions?
Yeah, that is a great. I'm ready for this. Who's taking this one?
I'm ready for it, but you know what? I'll give Gabby and maybe Jen a chance if you guys want to answer.
I guess I'll take this one. I think with everything going on, it can go either way. It can like for Milton Market, I know I've seen a lot of with the immigration before the border closed. It was boosting home prices really high. You would see a townhome go for like 7 something in the Milton Market. I think it might have an effect, but not that great to reduce the amount of homes that are being purchased and or sold. I don't see the builders reducing their prices because the border's been closed. So I don't think that it will have much of, at least that's my opinion, much of an impact. It might impact it just slightly, but not significantly.
What is our population in the Greater Toronto area? What are we, about 150,000 a year? Is that approximately what the number is? Am I just throwing it out? Anybody want to kind of fact check me? 140, 150?
I thought it was
140.
140, 150? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
it's a big chunk that every single year, right? Like in Southern Ontario, Golden Horseshoe area, like the percentage for the overall immigration number is insanely high. The vacancy rate though is already so low that like we have the opportunity, like even if the borders don't open up for a while, like it's not like there's 10% vacancy to begin with. So like there's definitely some room.
Yeah, it's not like any Canadian citizens are not looking to buy or looking to rent. I know the majority of my rental applications that come in, the majority are from locals. Yeah. Whether it's people that are students are looking to move out into their own place, couples coming together and they want to live together for the first time, divorcees that are separated and they need their own place. We haven't seen the effect of the borders closing at all. We're still getting so many applications in. And like I said, we're a very highly populated country. I think if the borders shut down and we have a decrease of immigration for a small period of time, I don't think this is going to be a forever thing by any means. I don't think it has been really impacting the rental market at all. It may soften a little bit of the purchasing market, but rental market's still going pretty strong for us at least.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean,
not in Southern Ontario.
What's that?
Not in Southern Ontario, like maybe in Vancouver, like, I mean, maybe in a different, different area, it might be affected more, but I can't see Southern Ontario really seeing much of a downward trend because of that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, look, Toronto it's a world-class city, and there's a lot of people that have moved here and they're here and they want to either. I mean, look, you got also interprovincial as well too. A lot of people that live in Canada that want to come to Toronto, right? So, yeah, no, it's good.
So, Jen, I just want to take it back. You mentioned something that was really interesting because obviously, we're in the rental business, right? Yeah. And you mentioned, you're getting a steady amount of applications coming in for renters. Obviously, not much has changed now with this COVID. I mean, from what I'm reading, from what you're saying. However, I have to assume that you have modified your model. You have modified your screening process. You've modified something. You want maybe to take some of us on the call through some of the things that you've seen that you've had to change or modify?
Sure. My husband and I, we in general have a very stringent screening process. But with COVID coming in, I think a lot of it was we had to remind ourselves to stick with that. I think a lot of us sometimes we're in a panic and we just want to get it rented quickly. We just want to get the money. And I think it's going back to the basics. I mean, like, we have a stringent screening process in place for a reason. It's been successful for over 7 years. We're not changing it. We have had to make some tweaks in regards to viewing properties. But in the long run, it was actually something that was very successful for our business. We had a high volume previously, so pre-COVID, of no-shows. So we had a lot of people reaching out on Kijiji or Marketplace, and they were always saying, oh, can I come see the property? And we're like, sure. And we would spend a lot of time, or our agent would spend a lot of time waiting at properties for these people who were supposedly so interested and never showing up. Once we realized we couldn't show our properties, a lot of our properties currently have families living in it. And for safety reasons, we were trying to minimize the amount of people going through the properties. Even the ones that were currently vacant, they're still duplexes. So it's a shared air system, and we're still very sensitive to that. And we want to make sure everybody in the house is completely safe. So little things that we did tweak were pre-screening every applicant that is coming through. So we are very upfront with them. We say, we are not showing this property until you've been pre-screened. So this is going through everything, going through the basic rental application. It's even answering 4 basic questions, being like, can you move in on July 1st? Yes or no? How many people in your family? Do you have pets? Are you smokers? Even just having them answer the 4 questions, a lot of people didn't even respond to us. So for me, I'm like, if you can't answer 4 basic questions, you're not going to be very good at filling out all the other questions. We're still checking credit scores, applications. We still call all the references. We understand things like work letters are a little more difficult to come by, but if you can prove some way that you are still working and you're still making an income and have proof of it, we're open to different ways of that. But once we pretty much have pre-screened them and we've narrowed down our top 3 applicants, that is when we show the property. And every time we do a showing, all 3 applicants show up, because at this point we know they're really serious. We know they want the property. We already have weeded out either tire kickers. People are just like, maybe I'll move out, or I'm tired of looking at the same 4 walls for 2 months now. And we didn't realize how many of those people were out there. We just assumed every person who reached out was really interested and serious about the property. And the amount of applications we have gotten, and just to get them to the point where they'll even get to the phone call, like talking to them first, there's only a couple at the end. And so we've saved ourselves countless hours of sitting in properties waiting for people, or spending so much time with a tenant that's probably not going to pan out. When there's 8 people want to live in a 2-bedroom apartment, you're kind of like, do I really want to spend a lot of time with this applicant? Are they really going to be successful in this house? That for some people are a little panicky and they're just like, just fill it. But if you take the first application that comes through, I know we've talked to a lot of other like paralegals, and some of them are saying, this is the only time you have control over who goes in your property. Because once the tenant's in the property, it's very difficult to get them out after that. So this is the time, COVID, no COVID, doesn't matter. Take your time to screen properly.
Shouldn't they have a 3-month probation period for tenants? Huh? That'd be great. You know, you go to your job 3 months, right? You suck, you're gone. Right? 3 months for the tenants. Suck, you're gone.
I'd like that. I am going to work on my picket tonight. I want to start spray painting it. I'm going down there.
There you go. That's my contribution for the day.
All right. Cool.
But I think, and that's a great point, I think now landlords, the stringent landlords, can just blame it on COVID now, right? And say, well, based on COVID, so you're not the big bad landlord anymore. These are the procedures I have in place now to protect everyone. So I think it does weed out a lot of those people up front now.
Yeah, I know going forward, we're going to be doing that from now on. We're going to pre-screen every single person before they step foot in the property.
Right.
And if the tenant doesn't like it, this is going to be the new norm, I think. People are going to be more stringent going forward.
Yeah.
A word of caution. Sorry, Gabby, go ahead.
I actually was introduced to a app called like Larbi. So it's like a long process to even, it's like borderline you're applying for a mortgage type of deal. That's how long the process is. And I actually started implementing that. So if you know, when that time comes and we're renting again, if you've actually gone through that entire application process, then that shows me that you're a lot more serious. Like, it's very detailed, and you know, after the first couple questions they're probably going to give up, but by the time you make it to the end, it kind of weans out who it is that's actually going to be there. So I found that app very helpful.
Yeah, I know a few of our investors have actually used that. Neighborly, I think it's NABORLY.ca.
Yeah.
If you want to, yeah. Hey, Quentin, maybe you can just look it up and just throw it in the chat box real quick for people. But yeah, it is a good application for sure.
I was going to just mention just a word of caution, because there's going to be a lot of tenants that can't pay, and there's going to be, I think, some landlords that will start doing some cash for keys. And one of the things that you want to ensure is that the tenants that are coming in are not one of the tenants that got cash for keys because they couldn't pay or they refused to pay. So double check that there were payments made for these months. And even if it's like a year or two, ask for proof of payments for March and April and May and June of 2020. And you want to make sure that these aren't, because here's the thing, if I had a tenant that was rent striking, luckily I don't, and I've screened my tenants, and you know, I'm got good relationships with all of them. But if you've got a tenant that's going to rent strike and the board is closed, and it was already 7 months to get a tenant out before COVID, because there were about 54,000 cases going through, now when it reopens, they don't have a system where, you know, if they don't revamp their entire system, which they won't, it could take 12 months. And so you look at it and you're like, okay, well, I could pay this tenant 10 grand or 5 grand, get them out and start again, or I could ride this wave for 12 months and lose potentially thousands more. So word of caution, just double check that that was not one of the tenants that is now trying to rent your place.
Yeah, it's like we talk about, we're saying make your business pandemic proof, and it's part of this tenant process where look around you right now. Who has been working during the pandemic? Who are the people that are essential workers that have been working nonstop since March 15th onwards? Those are the type of employees that you should be looking for when they're applying for your properties. Because you know when the next pandemic happens, whether it's 5, 8 years from now, you're not going to be one of the landlords sitting around on April 1st going, oh my God, I hope I'm getting paid today. You can just sit back and relax. You know you have amazing tenants. You know all their jobs are pandemic, recession-proof, internet-proof, whatever you want to call it. It's just one extra, sometimes, box that we've kind of put on our tenant screening form.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Jen. It really is. I mean, this is a good learning lesson for everybody. And you need to, like you're saying, pandemic proof your business, right? Take note of what's happening and implement those things and put it, it's now part of your system. And especially what you're doing now too with your tenants. I mean, you know, your most precious resource is time. And so now you've gained back some time, right, Jen, by doing what you're doing. So that's great advice.
Homeschool my children. I should be sitting in the house by myself waiting for tenants. I did not take advantage of this.
Yes. All right, cool. Let's get through some more of these questions here, Quentin. What else do we got?
Here's another good one. We didn't see the first COVID wave coming, so most of us were reactive in terms of deferrals and rent. If there's another COVID wave coming, what would you do differently?
And this is not if. This is not if, right? This is when. Correct, Jen?
This is
you
when.
Being in bio. Yeah. Okay.
So for me personally, my property's cash flow, I just plan on riding the wave. So if there's COVID again, I still plan on riding it. You know, I think there's gonna be some opportunities when things get tough, and you know, hopefully everybody that's on here is, you know, going to be able to ride the wave and buy properties that cash flow now, and just make sure that you have rainy day funds, but also, you know, funds to be able to invest if possible. And, you know, this is also a good opportunity for people to have, okay, you know, 3-4 months of expenses per property as an example. So I know it's the more properties you have, it's going to be harder to do for every single unit. But if you've got, you know, 10 or 15 or less properties, if you can get yourself a few months buffer in there in case tenants cannot pay or refuse to, et cetera, you're going to be able to ride a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's definitely a time to really and truly constructively use the downtime to overanalyze your entire portfolio if you can. Things that you could cut, or maybe even things that you're near paying off, or like, let's say, you know, you're renting Reliance Furnace or whatever the case may be. If you can cut that to move that funds over to something else to have that buffer, now's the time to kind of really utilize that time.
Yeah, that's a good point too, right? Yeah, sorry, I was just going to finish that. Like, it's just about like taking a look at everything that's happening in that one property and taking a look at the ROI in it, whether it be a hot water tank or maybe it's a rented furnace or whatever it may be, right? So that's a good point, Gabrielle. Sorry, go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to tack on to that, right now I'm doing a bunch of refis because the rates are great. So we always look at, like, you know, a pandemic where it's like, oh, this is terrifying, all these bad things are going to happen. But if you can look for the little opportunities in it, you can actually enhance your portfolio in ways that will actually generate greater returns. So I'm going out and I'm refining a bunch of properties because the rates are lower now. And so that's
me both, Jess. You and me both.
Yeah.
So let me ask all four of you then, like, are 4 of you guys recommended to do some refinance on your properties?
If you're near the maturity time, yeah. Like for me, 2 of my maturities are in July, and I'm just gonna do it and get it a good rate. Yeah. So.
Okay, and it also, I guess, depends on the penalty that you could incur as well too, or what your term is, right? So obviously, you know, you got to sit down and have a talk with your bank or your mortgage broker. That's a disclaimer.
Right.
Cool. Any other questions there, Quentin?
Yeah, I guess we'll throw this one at Jessica. What has been the best marketing method during the COVID lockdown? I guess in regards to wholesaling. So have you made any tweaks, I guess, to your marketing during the wholesale pandemic? I mean, during the COVID pandemic?
Truthfully, I don't know that we've made any tweaks to our marketing. I think we're kind of focusing on, and this is something we always do. We always focus on, because we do a ton of different marketing channels. So I'll back it up a little bit. So we do online ads. We do like driving for dollars, which if people aren't familiar is you drive around the neighborhood. You look at which houses are in need of repair. Like if you've got a terrible roof on a house, maybe they're in desperate need of selling. They obviously can't maintain it well. There must be a reason behind that, driving for dollars. We do flyers, like there's so many different channels that we kind of focus on in the wholesaling space, just because we've grown a lot. So our business in the last 3 years, we're up to like 17 employees now. I think we just hired an 18th employee. So we've really grown the business a lot. And so we really focus on a lot of different marketing channels. So we're not really reliant on one specific one. But what's been working well, a lot of the online stuff has been working great for us. And a big thing about wholesaling is, and people don't really talk enough about it, is follow up with people. Someone that maybe was looking to sell 5 months ago, but was, potentially not ready to pull the trigger at that point. Today, with everything that's going on, they might be in a slightly different situation. And so the power of follow up, I can't emphasize that enough. To me, that's almost like a marketing channel in and of itself. You have all these great leads who perhaps weren't willing to make a move at that point in time. Follow up with them, because today it might be a very different situation. And so it's constantly looking at, what's producing a lot of good results, but what else we have in our pipeline that could, we could go back to and could start producing results.
Yeah, and it seems to be the common theme throughout this evening that people haven't really moved away from their systems, right? They're just engaging more in the systems that they already had in place.
Absolutely.
All right.
Like there's a lot of contactless ways of marketing. I know like right now I currently have over 10,000 flyers spread across my living room downstairs. And if you could just tap into things like Vistaprint, they ship to your house contact. We're using Canada Post. So you can actually go online. They have a e-tool that you can select and like actually narrow down your demographics. If you want a couple, if you want a certain income bracket, male, female, they can actually narrow down certain routes for you, and you can pick those based on what type of property or area that you want. So I've been going around Hamilton online, picking all the different areas, different routes that I want. You print off a piece of paper, you drop it off at any Canada Post, and they deliver everything. So it's not like we're going door to door, pinning flyers on people's doors, and also gives you access to all those big community mailboxes that you normally wouldn't be able to sometimes get mail into. So like on the mailboxes on the houses.
Sorry, Jen, I missed that. Is that for wholesaling? Like trying to find
just off-market deals.
Off-market deals. Okay.
Yeah,
got it.
Like
Yep.
MLS prices. So.
Okay. That's a good idea. What else we got there, Quinn?
I guess just one from Ron here. He has a tenant in Buffalo who has been rent striking for 3 months. His property manager has wanted to handle the situation, but I want to talk to the tenant myself. Do you think I should bypass my manager and talk to the tenant myself?
Yes. I think, well, if you're not getting anywhere and it's been 3 months, be diplomatic and everything like that, but I would reach out to them, because there's always two sides of every story. And if, unless, I would try to get to the bottom of it. That's just what I would do. And then just let your manager know that you're just going to be giving them a call to try to see if there's any reasoning. And if not, then, you just keep proceeding with whatever paperwork they do in New York.
I agree. I just gave that advice to one of my investors as well too last week. The property manager just wasn't doing a good job with the situation. And they touched base with their tenants, and the relationship now is smooth right over and everything is good. Your tenants are gold. So if there's something going on with your tenants, then you should definitely reach out to them if you think there's some type of friction. So I think that's a great answer.
I find it's also being really proactive with your tenants. We've been really trying to take the time to connect with a lot of our tenants. I know a lot of us, we just kind of like to set it and forget it kind of attitude with rental properties. When COVID first happened and they hadn't even released CERB yet, we had started writing letters to all of our tenants just to be like, we know there's difficult times coming up. We hear you. We know there's problems. And then we went out and actively researched a whole bunch of community supports, whether it was at the provincial level, federal level, municipality level, because obviously there were already financial support and systems in place. And so we wanted to let all of our tenants know that as much as we were currently waiting for CERB and all the guidelines to come out for it, there were things they could apply for that day that could help them. Even if before they were, I put them in contact with all utilities, be like, here people, apparently all utility companies were able to give them 1 month break or a deferral. And this was prior to them doing the peak time, they canceled the peak time hours and things like that. So it's trying to reach out to them.
I will come after.
And
Trying to reset
like, I'm here for you, I'm supporting you. We spent days and days and days researching all the different avenues.
Just one of the guy went to the same phone and they contacted the tenant and then good standing now. So I think I'm gonna do that.
Sorry.
Okay, I think I got it there.
Okay. So I was saying, I learned something called 211, which has been phenomenal to pass along to tenants. It's a provincial level. It's literally you phone the number 211 and you can reach a person who they speak 24 hours a day. There's over 50 languages they speak, and they will customize a financial aid package for your situation. And it can be anything from, I'm a single mom, I have 2 kids, or we all got laid off as a 2 fully incomed family. And they give you all of these options that are already existing in the Ontario system. And also if there was provincial, federal, and municipality levels too. And I couldn't believe all these things they had to offer. And the lady was just like, just have your tenants call me. She's like, literally, you call here and we will set up all your tenants who can't pay. They can't afford diapers, they can't afford rent. She's like, there's programs in place for all of these things already. So we reached out to our tenants, wrote them letters, just to be like, I didn't even know these existed. And I've been in Canada for however many years. So I wanted these people to know that there were other options. And I think it's reaching out to them. Some of our tenants, they didn't need any help, but just the fact that we were reaching out and being like, hey, are you okay? I have ways to help you if you need it. We had such amazing responses from our tenants. They were like, because we didn't want to be that big stereotypical landlord. Do I want to get paid on the first every month? Absolutely. But do I still want to be a genuine human being as well? More importantly, yes.
It's that added personal touch.
Yeah. What was that number again, Jen? Was this 211?
211. Yep. So the website is 211. The phone number is 211. She said they try to keep it really simple because a lot of new immigrants coming to the country, they don't understand like the area code's different and language barriers. But so they said they try to keep it as simple as possible. But like I said, 24 hours a day, over 50 different languages. It's a really great resource.
I've never even heard of that before. Listen, every time I do these webinars, I learn something new. Like, and the more I do these, the more I realize how little I know. It's incredible.
Yeah.
No, thanks for sharing that. All right, we are at the 9 o'clock mark. Listen, I think that's it for the evening. So before we wrap it up, I'm going to ask you guys all to just maybe give one last piece of advice with, what everybody in this call can kind of do moving forward. And especially, the new world that is going to emerge out of this, because the old world is not coming back. I think we all know that now, right? So anybody can start off first.
I'll start. I guess my one little tip is just utilize this time. Try to maximize your time. Use this this down period to find loopholes, or not even loopholes, but gaps in your process, your procedures, however you go about having your portfolio. Just use this time to try to see how you can make it more efficient and effective, so that when we begin to move forward with this, you can move forward in an effective and efficient manner.
Great. Jen or Sarah? Go ahead.
I can go next if you want, or Jen. Jen, you want to go next, or do you want me to go next?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll arm wrestle you for it.
All right, go ahead.
My biggest thing is be kind to yourself. I think personally, a lot of us are expecting the same results that from the actions that we were doing pre-COVID. We all have certain expectations and certain measures of what success is and what progress is. Those don't exist in this world anymore. A lot of us were like, I need to do this. This is what I have to achieve to be successful. This is what I need to do to consider myself moving my portfolio forward. That doesn't exist right now. And I think we need to be kind and gentle ourselves to be like, if I'm not buying a property every single month, that's okay in COVID. You need to understand that these are different times, and evidence of progress is not what it used to be anymore. And I think some people just kind of need to take that step back and be like, if you're trying and you're going forward, as long as you're kind of putting that foot forward each day in your own way, that is success nowadays.
Great advice.
I guess I can go next. So I think, I'm thankful for having spent 7 to 8 years so far as a real estate investor, because I will say that, the job market, whether I have a job today or not tomorrow, luckily it's not affecting me. And I think that's a really cool spot to be in. And anybody that's listening to this can be in our spot in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. So, if you haven't started yet, really pay attention to the fundamentals, because you don't want to have anything that doesn't cash flow, but you're, being in the market for a certain amount of years, you're going to come out ahead. And this will happen again. We're going to have another COVID type of scenario, whether it's in a year from now, and 3 years from now, and 5 years from now. But if you're not prepared, this is a really good, I think, call for everybody to say, how do I get prepared for the next time that if I lose my job again, or I have to go on some type of CERB thing again, I won't be affected in the same capacity as today. So I think it's, a lot of people and a lot of riches and a lot of wealth get created in downturns or downward trends and going back up. So put yourself in the position to take action, so you can take advantage of this opportunity. Look at 08 and 2009 in the US. A lot of people did really well that took action once that was over. So get ready.
Yeah, no, that's a great advice. Because see, wealth does not disappear. It just gets transferred. And so if you can pay attention, if you know what to do and what side of the fence to be on, there's a great opportunities in the world that we're in right now. And last but not least, Jessica.
Yeah, I'll just echo some of the sentiments already shared, and in my own sentiments that, there's opportunity in every single market. And, if we're in real estate investing for the long term, continue to having that long-term outlook, and don't let that stop you from continuing with whatever momentum you have started building or want to start building or are continuing to build. Obviously be careful, understand, like we said, the fundamentals of investing, really set out a strategy that you're, focused on. But there's so many opportunities right now, in a downturn that we were just saying that you can take advantage of. And if you're in it for the long term, that's really like the best attitude to have is, what do I want to accomplish? How do I want to accomplish it? What safeguards can I put in place? But not let that slow down any kind of progress or momentum. Essentially don't put your investing on hold because of this market we're in. Markets change every single day, every week, every month, every year. the market's always going to be in a state of flux. It's how we adapt to that and how we move forward in the current state of flux and the next state of flux that's going to affect us, is how we build resilience and how we essentially build our portfolios for the long term. Because I think most of us on this call probably are looking at real estate in terms of, I want to create some financial freedom for myself, for my family, and have that as sort of like, you know, either a buffer for my full-time job or a way to leave my full-time job. So my big advice is, don't put your plans on hold, just be smart and reactive.
Great advice. That kind of reminds me of what Jim Rohn said. You know, the next 2,000 years is going to be the similar or the same as the previous 2,000 years, mixed with difficulties and opportunities. All right. So you got to, you just got to position yourself correctly. So listen, Sarah, Jessica, Gabrielle, and Jen, thank you guys very much. Very informative. I think everybody that joined this evening would have gotten great information out of this. Chris, Tefer, and Quentin, thank you guys very much as well too for co-hosting, and everybody that's on the line, thank you guys very much for being here, because if you guys aren't here, then this is not possible. So thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary,
and
thank you for having us. Thanks,
All right,
guys.
take care.
Thanks,
Have a great
ladies.
night. Get to that wine now, okay?
Yes.
Good night.
Good night.
Night, everyone.